Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to give you a full overview of how to conduct market research. This is going to take you from a beginner to a solid understanding of what market research does and some more advanced principles. So stay tuned as I'll build upon my knowledge throughout this course. So the first thing to think about is, why do market research? The top reasons why startups fail are due to market research. So if you look at the top three, they ran out of cash, they failed to raise new capital, there is no market need, or they're outcompeted. All three of those to me come down to market research. If you ran out of cash, you couldn't raise new capital, it usually means that there wasn't enough of demand from a customer. They weren't paying, or investors weren't really convinced. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but basically they weren't understanding the customer, right? So the second one, there's no market need. That's the obvious one. The people didn't want it. And the third one is they got outcompeted. So their customers were able to solve the need better than they were, and they weren't really taking time to stay aware of what their what their competitors were doing. Okay, so now let's jump into types of research. There are two types you need to be aware of. There is qualitative and quantitative research. Qualitative research is non-numerical. It could be things like focus groups and interviews, observations, maybe online or in person, written information such as books, that adds more depth to the actual data that you're getting. So when you do a qualitative interview, you can understand and see things like body language, facial reactions, and some of those unspoken cues that you're not able to observe doing quantitative research, which I'll get to in a second. It's really important to do both, and so don't do one more than the other, but there is kind of an order you should do them in, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But the next thing to understand is quantitative research. Quantitative research is numerical data. So it's things you can quantify, questions that are easy to replicate. They might have a scale like, strongly disagree to strongly agree. And, you respond and it's easy to measure based on numbers. So it could be things like surveys, polls, financial records, stock reports, anything that you can kind of see as a number and compare, even web statistics. And the benefit of doing quantitative research is you get a wider sample size. Qualitative research can be a little bit more time consuming. It could be like a 30 to 60-minute interview or more. And a quantitative study could be 5 questions on a survey that is easy to distribute to hundreds or thousands of people, and it might take only 5 minutes. So it's a lot easier to get. And again, you don't want to discount one over the other. You will probably use both of these in either method, because if you're doing a qualitative interview, you still might ask quantitative questions. You could ask things like, rate your frustration on a scale. If you're doing a quantitative survey, you might also ask some qualitative questions, anything that's open-ended. Please describe your experience using this product. So they really are intertwined, but I'll explain how to use them and what order to use them as we go on. The next thing to understand about market research are just two terms to be familiar with. There is reliability and validity. So if you guys have any background with psychology and personality research, this is talked about a lot in there, and I think it is still pretty relevant to market research as well, because you want to make sure that you are doing the right kinds of research and you're not biasing your results. And so if something's reliable but not valid, it's going to be consistent. You're going to get like a fully complete survey, and it's going to give you a consistent result, but it might not really be on target. Maybe you're not sampling the right people, so maybe they're kind of all over the place. And if something is valid but it's not reliable, it's going to be on target, but it's going to be skewed everywhere. You'll have probably the right customers and the right problem, but you're not getting really anything consistent. If something's neither valid or reliable, it's going to be all over the place. Some of them will be on target, maybe even one in the middle. Some will be way off, not even on target at all. What we're shooting for is something that is both reliable and valid, meaning that it is consistent and it is also giving what we are trying to measure, which is, customer sentiment or other things. Now let's jump in how to start. The first thing you need to do is define your idea. The next step is to understand and define your customer. You then want to develop survey questions. You want to test them on an interview audience and then survey your customers. Lastly, you want to analyze your results. So let's dive into that a little bit further. The first step, defining your idea, you have to have a problem statement. And you want to be very descriptive, but also very concise. I know those sound contradictory, but hear me out. So a good problem statement will explain the problem in 1 to 2 sentences and it will be easy to understand. So here's an example. Managing credit card points across different cards is time consuming. It is also difficult to track bonuses to maximize rewards. Once you have your problem defined, you need to go into your solution. So the solution for this could be a dashboard to manage credit card points with an option to receive alerts for bonus periods. That would help somebody not only put all their credit card points in one place, maybe be aware of special offers, and then be alerted if there's some period of time where they get extra points back for something. This could be really good for people tracking Sky Miles or cashback and other things like that. The next step is to define your customer. This is really important because it will help you understand who you need to survey. So you want to understand basic demographics such as age and gender and location are really the bare minimum of demographics you need to understand. You can even go a bit further and look at things that are more granular such as profession, buying habits, and more. You could even ask, do these people have pets? Do they not? Do they live in affluent areas? Do they not? Whatever it might be, a high school degree, college degree, the more complicated and accurate you want your research to be, the more demographics you need to understand. But if you're starting out, high-level demographics such as age and gender and location is a really good way to start. I also have on here this customer persona tool. So this is something that HubSpot created. It allows you to go in. It's a free tool where you can go in and answer some questions about the type of customer that you are looking for. It's a great way to kind of brainstorm who your customer is and will lead you into a better market research survey down the line. So take a look at that. I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested and you can check it out. Okay, the next step is to develop your survey questions. You'll need a mixture of quantitative and qualitative questions, things that can be easy to put on a survey or open-ended questions you might ask on a survey or an interview, and you'll need a mix of both. Something you want to be especially careful about on your survey is neutral wording. You don't want to lead your customer to an answer that you want them to give. If you are biasing results by guiding them to feel kind of the same frustration that you experience, or you're asking leading questions to help them give a specific answer, then you'll bias your result. And most of the time, people don't intentionally try to bias their survey results. Sometimes they do, but more often than not, they're just not careful enough with how they're wording questions. So when you're looking at a question that makes you elicit like an emotional response, that's a good way to tell if your question is maybe a little bit biased. Having an emotional response is not a bad thing for a survey, but you want to make sure that it's not leading them to one answer versus another. You want your questions to validate your problem and not your ego. You need to be aware of bias on all accounts, and I'll touch on this a little bit more later. But if you want to look at some sample questions and even have a template that has everything ready to go in a fillable form, go to Keasley.com. I'll put a link in the description below. I have a template, and it's top 10 qualitative questions you can ask in an interview, and it's a fillable form, so you can just start your interview, type in there, and save it. Nothing else to do. So take a look if you're interested. Quick call out, if you're still watching this video and you're finding value, please click that like button and subscribe. And if you don't mind, leave a comment below with your thoughts. It helps me be found and supports me doing this for free. The next thing to do is to interview customers. And I put this before survey customers because it is a good place to tweak survey questions. If you can find people who are your target audience, it's usually easier to do it on like a handful of people with a customer interview as opposed to a large sample size of hundreds or thousands. And you'll want to record any interview that you have. So if it is an in-person interview, that's great. I think it's even better because that shows you some things that you can't see on a webcam. So for example, if you're selling a software that's like organizing tasks as a project manager, you might go to their office and see that their office is a mess, but it might not be to them. They might have this real great system of organizing tasks that could inspire you to build something in a software that replaces that messy desk. So there's a lot that can be learned from an in-person interview. If you're not able to do in person, online is a great second option. And if you do it online, make sure that you record it. I have on here a tool that I personally use and love. It's called Airgram.io. I think they're recently bought by Noda, so take a look for them if you don't see Airgram. But it's free and you can install it on like a browser extension. and it will record meetings and transcribe them from Google Meets, Teams, Zoom, and others. So highly, highly valuable, especially if you're going to pivot down the line with a different idea. You can go back to these interviews and see what the problem statements were and what the customers' maybe workarounds and thoughts and emotions were, and any other insights that you might have missed when you were focused on one idea. So it is really, really important to record those if possible. Tweaking your survey questions is really crucial at this stage too. You can ask a lot of things in, a 30 or 60-minute interview, and you can kind of test out some of the questions that you developed, see if they're confused by the wording. Do they give you a response that you're looking for? Is it not? Is it kind of a wasted question that leads them down a rabbit hole? Don't make decisions based on one customer interview. You want to do a few of them, but it will give you a great idea to help you inform your survey to take it to a larger population. The next thing to talk about real quick is a term called follow me home. So it's basically what I've already described. It's understanding what the customer, how they interact with the problem in their own environment and solutions that you might offer to help them. So this came from a course I took on design thinking from Intuit. It's kind of their secret sauce. It's called Design for Delight. And it's a free course. You guys can go get it today and start learning. I'll put a link in the description below. There's a paid option out there, but you don't need to do that. I'll send you the link for this free course if you're unfamiliar with what design thinking is. I think it's a great place to start. The next thing you want to do is gather participation for your survey. You can pay people to do it, but it's going to cost you like $1,000 to $10,000 for a big company to go find your customers for you. And so if you're starting out and you have a small budget, this is your best bet. The best place to start is like Facebook. You can go find Facebook groups out there. Just search for groups and find your customers and ask them if they'd be willing to take a survey. Reddit's a great place as well. You might get some responses on there. You can also get some great insights from different threads and discussions to see if your problem is shared and what solutions are out there. And then newsletters is a really underused option. So you might have a newsletter that you can send it out. If so, I mean, that's great. You're already 10 steps ahead. If not, find where your customers are and maybe newsletters they receive and see if you could tack on to that. So an example for that might be like human resources. So if you have a software that might make a human resources manager's job easier, you could go to SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, and you could ask them for feedback on an idea. You say, hey, I have something I'm working on. It might make your job easier. Could we talk? And, maybe down the line or maybe initially you could just say, would you be willing to put this survey link in your newsletter so you could get some responses from the potential customers and get some participation that way? And then if you want in-person options, there are a few ways you can go about that. You can go to direct businesses if that's where your customers are. And if you can talk to like the people in person, great. If not, networking events are another great option. Sign up for those because people are there to talk and make connections and solve problems. So it's a really good option. And then social meetups. Think about where you're at. Like, are you talking to your barber, once a month? Check it out, see what they think. Are you going to church events, other activities? It's always a great place to be top of mind. Gathering participation can be a grind, so you might need to get creative and stick with it as you want to get enough customers to analyze results. I want to touch on one more thing before I go to the next slide, which is, again, bias. Incentivizing surveys can be a great thing. You might want to encourage people to take a survey with like a $5 gift card, maybe a discount on a future product or service, maybe, something else, a favor in return. But think about the audience that you're attracting when you do that. So if you're offering people a $5 gift card to take your survey, but your ideal customer is someone who is wealthy, maybe a CEO of a large company, do you really think the CEO of a large company is going to care about a $5 gift card? Probably not. So think about who you're attracting with that. Again, you don't want to just get any data because any data can be bad data and therefore useless. So just keep in mind about who you're trying to recruit and be willing to cast out outliers when you have enough responses that are reliable, they're grouped together, and then you have one or two stray, you can discount those. Okay, so now you've started your survey, you're starting to collect results, and you might be wondering, when is enough? When do I stop? So 30 is the bare minimum that you should get before you start making assumptions and inferences about a population. A lot of statisticians think that 100 is really the bare minimum that you need, so take that with a grain of salt. It's really hard to get if you're starting out on a new business idea, especially if you're doing qualitative interviews. There's just not enough time in the day or in the year to get 100 customer interviews that are really great quality in a short period of time. So qualitative interviews, I think that you can get less than 30 personally, just to get a kind of a gut check on your idea. But with like a survey, I think 30 should be pretty easy for you to get if you're doing those methods mentioned earlier. And if you're not getting participation you need and you're not incentivizing, maybe consider incentivizing. Maybe incentivize a different way and do things to draw people to your survey and be willing to help. Maybe your problem is you're asking too many questions. You could scale back your questions to increase participation as well. So again, you want to look for trends in your results, not outliers. Look for things that are consistent and not one-off. Age and gender, maybe women care more about the problem that you're trying to solve than men. Maybe people in their 40s care a lot more than in their 20s or vice versa. And so check your assumptions. It's not, the market research is not meant to just validate your own assumptions. It's meant to confirm your assumptions. So again, you're not trying to validate your ego, you're trying to confirm some assumptions. And so be willing to check some of those at the door and see what matches your expectations and what you need to change. The goal is to confirm your assumptions, not validate your ego. Okay, I'm going to go into a few high-level ways where you can use to validate your idea that are in addition to like a straight-up survey. And I made a whole video on this, the top 10 market research tools that you might want to check out. I go into a lot of depth. I share my screen. You can see the actual tool, so you don't have to go use it yourself. But I'll just give a high-level overview in case you want to just do this and then carry on and go forth. You might want to consider something like a landing page test. And that's basically where you create a landing page of your product, your service, your idea, and then pay for some Google ads that go with that and see who clicks on your website, who clicks buy now. And it's a great way to see like who is interested enough in your product or service to click buy now. So you can also buy research reports that are done. I personally don't love those. It's just, who knows how it was conducted. I mean, I think there are some that are probably pretty good out there, but they're really expensive to buy a research report, like thousands of dollars. You can also go with a research company, bypass all this work, pay someone to do it yourself. But I will tell you, having explored that myself, they are not for startup founders they're usually for established companies and product managers. So be willing to pay a lot if you're going to pay someone else to get it for you. A company that if you do want to go this route that I like is Qualtrics. They do really good work. They've been around forever. They have a great research methodology, a really good tool. You can actually use their tool for free if you want to, use that and gather your own participants. You can do so. And if you want to pay, again, they have different pricing tiers as well. So a few other free options I'm going to go through on here are keyword research. If you haven't checked out Google Trends, do so. It will show you the search traffic for keywords that you're searching for. You can break it out by different state, date, time range, everything like that, and see who's searching for what. Answer the Public is also another tool you can use. There's a free tier on that as well. It will actually break out keywords into questions that people ask around that keyword, and it will give you an idea about questions you can ask, maybe even inform your survey as you're developing it. And then there's also AI. AI is not good at market research, so don't use it for that. It can't do it. But what it can do is a competitor analysis. So you could ask it to like generate a competitor analysis report for a company based on this company. And it can show you some of the competitors and strengths and weaknesses. It's not 100% accurate. I've tested it before and it's not quite there yet, but it's a good gut check if you want to just explore an idea early on. And then I have some prompts mentioned in my other video as well that I walk through. You guys can check out. So lastly, I want to leave you guys with some common mistakes. Don't share your solution till the end. Again, talking about biasing results, you don't want to tell somebody, here's what I'm working on and here's the solution, because then everything else that they answer is going to be based around that. You don't even know if it's a shared problem yet. And you don't want them to be nice to you and just say, oh yeah, I think it's a great idea, when inside, they think it's terrible. It's a great idea to ask them about, like, how often do they experience the problem? How much of an inconvenience is the problem? You might even ask how much money the problem costs them. Maybe what workarounds they have to the problem already. And if you want to see more questions on here and have a template, visit Keasley.com. You can get the top 10 questions. Just sign up for my newsletter and it will be sent to you and you can download it and use it in your interviews today. So don't miss that. It's a great resource to help you get started. I also have some quantitative questions that I'm working on. It might be available by the time you're watching this as well, to give you survey questions you can just copy and paste and tweak a little bit and you're ready to go. So that's all I have today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found some value. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing this video. Also, comment below. It really helps me when I hear back from you. Tell me what I did, what you liked, what you didn't like. I'd love to know any questions that you might have. So stay tuned, and we will see you guys next time.